A diplomatic drama of silence and strategy. The Nile Gambit. History often records the loudest voices. The world remembers noise. Speeches. Wars. Declarations. But power, real power, is often exercised in restraint. The most powerful moves in history are often made in silence. In the 1950s, the Nile became the stage of an unspoken confrontation. The Nile roared northward. Egypt, under Gamal Abdel Nasser, supported by the Arab fanatic nations, was building a monument to control the Nile route. On one side stood Gamal Abdel Nasser. Assertive, visionary, and determined to anchor Egypt's dominance through the Aswan High Dam. On the other side was Haile Selassie I. Measured, diplomatic, and fully aware that Ethiopia, though the source of the Nile, had been taken off the negotiation table. Concrete rose. Power consolidated. Friends and Arab fanatics threatened. The message was clear. The Nile belongs to those who can command it. And yet, far upstream, in the highlands of Ethiopia, another response was forming. Not in concrete, but in calculation. No declarations were exchanged. No summit collapsed. Yet beneath the surface, a quiet confrontation had begun. At the center of it stood Haile Selassie I. Measured. Patient. Unmoved by spectacle. He did not answer power with power. He answered it with time. Not by coincidence, but by continuity. Egypt moved decisively, mobilizing international support, leveraging Cold War alliances, Arab fanatic leaders, and building a structure that would physically regulate the river. Ethiopia, by contrast, made no immediate counterclaim, but quietly launched what appeared to be a technical exercise. The Blue Nile Basin Study. To outside observers, it was routine, data collection, hydrological mapping. But beneath the surface, something extraordinary was unfolding. Diplomatically, it was something far more deliberate. A formal re-entry of Ethiopia into the Nile equation. This was not just a study. It was a design without construction. Engineers and planners began identifying strategic dam locations, optimal flow control points, massive hydropower potential. Among those mapped possibilities were sites in the same corridor where, decades later, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam would rise. When Egypt sought control through infrastructure, Ethiopia pursued control through information. Here is where the story turns. Ethiopia did not rush to build. Instead, it did something far more enduring. It built certainty. The study produced precise mapping of the Blue Nile Basin, identification of high-capacity dam sites, long-term projections for water utilization and energy generation. This was not merely research, a structure waiting for its moment. It was the construction of a technical claim, one that could not be easily dismissed in future negotiations. Among the surveyed corridors were locations that would, decades later, host the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Haile Selassie I did not confront Gamal Abdel Nasser directly. He understood the risks. Egypt's regional influence, its geopolitical alliances with the Arab nations, the fragility of escalation of the situation. So he chose a different path. No public rejection of existing agreements. No escalation into open dispute. No abandonment of Ethiopia's position. Instead, he preserved flexibility, maintaining diplomatic relations while quietly reinforcing Ethiopia's future bargaining power. No public clash between Haile Selassie I and Gamal Abdel Nasser. No threats. No ultimatums. But make no mistake, this was a confrontation of philosophies. Egypt moved to secure the present. Ethiopia moved to own the future. For the first time, Ethiopia had a documented, scientific basis for development. The assumption of exclusive downstream control was subtly challenged. The foundation for future negotiation had been laid. One declared dominance. The other engineered inevitability. At the time, the outcome seemed clear. Egypt completed the Aswan High Dam. Its control over the Nile appeared consolidated. Ethiopia did not build. But beneath that apparent imbalance, something had shifted. Decades passed. Empires shifted. Leaders came and went. But the river remained, and so did the plan. Then, in the 21st century, the moment arrived. Ethiopia began constructing the grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam Gerd. To the world, it looked sudden, ambitious, even disruptive. But in truth, it was the execution of a vision set in motion generations earlier. It was acting on a pre-established strategic framework. The site, the scale, the logic, all reflected the earlier technical groundwork. What had once existed as mapped potential became an engineered reality, became a massive arch dam, one of Africa's largest hydropower projects, a symbol of national assertion. The architecture of Gerd, its scale, its placement, its purpose, reflects not just modern engineering but historical foresight. Gerd today stands not only as an infrastructure project, but as the materialization of a long-standing diplomatic position. That upstream nations possess legitimate rights. That development cannot be indefinitely deferred. That historical exclusion can be addressed through strategy, not confrontation. History will say the dam was built in the 21st century. But a deeper reading reveals something else. It was imagined in the 20th, calculated in silence, and realized when the time was right. In conventional terms, there was no decisive moment. No treaty signed in victory. No public concession. Yet in strategic terms, Haile Selassie I achieved something enduring. He transformed Ethiopia from a silent source of the Nile into a recognized stakeholder in its future. Not through force, not through spectacle, but through a form of diplomacy that operates on a longer timeline, where preparation becomes leverage, and patience becomes power.